so much expertise in so many areas that I was nervous to connect. I had looked at her profile, I had looked at her expertise in many areas of experience. And honestly, a lot of what I was grappling with at that time was how to show up around my values for disrupting oppression while also having a weight body. And I didn't know how to talk about that at a time when the news cycle was going a little bit wild. And that was my biggest challenge, is like finding a place where I could be open around racial anxiety I felt without like putting myself at the center of the things that I care about, that I want to make a difference on for reasons that include me, but also are beyond me. I'm a person who lives by those interconnections. And that was a challenge for me to find somebody that I felt comfortable working with. How Sito put me at ease around that is that when I showed up for the first call, I was like, okay, I've done my homework. Like, I've read your stuff, which I hope isn't weird. And she was like, that's not weird. That's doing your homework. And I was like, okay, that's very affirming. And when I shared more, basically the response I got back was like, welcome to your work. Like, welcome to the space. Welcome to your process. Welcome to this path. And that warm welcome gave me a place to be exactly where I was at that time, exactly who I was, so that I could both take stock of that, including the gifts there, right, which I had discounted, and then start to reveal to my own self how I could put those assets, including privileges, to work for the creativity and the joy that I am so committed to in the world. I could not believe that I had found a vision architect. I did not know what that was consciously, but I very much knew what it was in my gut. And that is what I wanted, is somebody who too could come up alongside of me and help look where I was looking, maybe help me scratch a little bit where I was scratching toward, and then also bring some structure in times that I was like tapping into kind of like the deeper story and the deeper flow for me. I'm a very structured person in a lot of areas of my life, but part of creativity and part of service for me is about letting go of that. And yet when you let go all the way, it's like also a bit hard to land it. And so there's a balance there. So that is what I appreciated most, is finding a thought partner who was showing up in that manner, but also had all this other skill and all this other expertise from trauma with kids and adults and families and complexity and social work and getting your doctorate and managing harm. Like, all of these aspects contributed to be supplementary factors for a human being who is willing to show up and say, oh yeah, I'm a vision architect. You bring the vision, like we will get that thing built. That was what I was really into. And I'm really glad that I took the jump. I first came to Sita when I was trying to do, I think before I was trying to do a big project, but I brought a big project into our space and was like, this is a huge opportunity. It's something that I basically challenged out of the universe to be like, this needs to happen. And then I got an opening and I was like, I mean, I could probably do it for like, I don't know, $4,000 to $7,000, like $4,000 to $7,000. And Sita was like, oh, heck no. Like, that is not what's happening. And so basically I breathed myself into the biggest ask that I could make, with the guidance and like the reminder that especially when institutions get to invest in real change, it sends a signal and also creates the listening for the rest of the institution to come along and treat it seriously as well. So the biggest number that I could think of at that time was to price a project at $150K. And it took me a while to grow into a little bit of the gravitas and grounding to be able to negotiate for that successfully. But I totally negotiated for it successfully. And in the end, I was like, look, you guys can either find this or I'll fundraise for it. And basically the stakeholders were like, oh, no, we'll find it. We'll find it. It took a while to close that, which was like, there were more bumps in that process because this organization had not done this kind of project before. But at the end, we built the pathway. And now we are like all the way like in the real world of delivering that project that would not have been sustainable, nor would have been very inclusive at the original price, because now I've gotten to bring in a multitude of other experts from very different fields, very different walks of life, different backgrounds to mine, to challenge our thinking on what the best is we can do as we go after inclusion and systems justice. So that has been invaluable. When I work with Sita, I walk away with a healthy sense of inevitability about the thing that wants to happen through me. one of the questions that I had the opportunity to ask in our time together was about Sita's faith, which I'm not really a religious person. I'm not a particularly Christian person versus other traditions. But one of the most impactful moments for me was talking to Sita about her faith and how she hears and distinguishes the voice of God from other voices. Like, how would I know if the thing inside of me were like the same as how people from different faith traditions view that relationship in their life? And the lesson that I walked away with is that for some people, when it comes to like God or spirit, there is often a nudge in an unconventional direction that's a little bit different than your default personality. However, when the nudge arises, the energy also always arises in order to fund that nudge. And so watching for those unconventional nudges in myself, and then also being willing to watch for the energy to accompany them versus just like overachiever syndrome or like burning ourselves into the ground, has been an amazing gift. I would say the gift of lift, so that I notice when those unusual windows are opening. And so I can kind of be with the opportunity and the moment in leaning into them while also taking really good care of myself. And that is what has created this kind of healthy sense of inevitability. Is like, I don't know how, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but it's like I wait for the wind a little bit and then I kind of lean into it with my glider, and then we kind of navigate around from there. So I envisioned and launched a 250-person Stanford course at the intersection of ethics and tech for people who don't usually have any affiliation or don't consider themselves to have any business necessarily applying to Stanford in the first place. In the course of creating that container, we ended up getting ahead of state and ahead of one of the biggest AI companies on the market right now to speak in that course, which further accelerated our ability to bring in people from all over the world, all backgrounds, like all kinds of lived experiences, to not just wonder about speaking for others, but also to speak for ourselves and themselves in an environment where people from the tech sector are doing their best to think about how to be responsive and responsible to wider swaths of humanity, while also showing up to do their jobs and be responsible in their companies. And so the possibility that is for the world is that I really want to see a tech sector. I want to see all industry behave responsibly and responsibly from the inside, not just to users or to their stakeholders or their stockholders, but like to societies at large. And so we have ended up bringing off the ground again this year, so igniting their passion and their connections and their networking as change makers, giving them real tools from community organizing, and also some really interesting new connections that they can bounce around with as they look to make a really big difference from the roles that they already inhabit inside of one of the sectors that's kind of shaping how the world is unfolding right now. And we were able to get that off the ground this year, which was really unforeseen right at the time that like ChatGPT and AI launched. So big year, I would say, like big vision, big year, big result. And my glow is that the humor, realness, and like take no prisoners, like love everybody, but like pull no punches, is like a very special cocktail that is you. And to do that with skill and rigor and so much intellect and intelligence, but also just like down to earth, coffee in the mug, it's like, it is so embodied, and it is also so skillful and powerful. And you are able to say more things to people because of the kindness of your spirit and the strength of your love than most can get away with. So I love that about you and your love-ish. And thank you for everything.